Okay, I'd love to ask a question to start. Who here likes to hire and manage people? Weird, not a lot of hands go up, right? It's kind of like this, well, it's a thing you have to do. It's a necessary evil to be successful at business. But I would like to pitch to you today that hiring and managing people is an opportunity to bless them and to spread the gospel in a way that a lot of people don't want to take on. And I'm going to tell you a story here. I had an employee, I'll make up a name, Jeff, not his real name. And that employee, and I was running a company with many hundreds of employees. He was a vice president and he had an anger problem. No way around it. We would be in a meeting and that fuse was short and he would blow up. And so I pulled him aside and I said, Jeff, here's the thing. If you're angry, if you do this, you're destroying relationships and it's just not acceptable at my organization. I was the CEO. I was trying to be distinctly Christian in the way I was running my business. This anger is just not allowed and you need to deal with it, Jeff. And so he's like, I'm like, go get pastoral help, go get counseling help, whatever you need to do, you need to deal with this sin in your life because that's really what it was. Turns out, I didn't know this, his marriage was not in a great spot. His pastor had talked to him about his anger problem. His wife had talked to him about his anger problem. But I had this really cool lever called a paycheck. And so he kind of had to listen to me when I said, you have to deal with this anger problem in your life. And it's funny how sin doesn't keep in nice, tight boundaries, right? If you're angry at work, you're probably angry at home. If you're lazy at work, you're probably lazy in other areas of your life. And so as an employer, I had a voice into his life that nobody else did, right? And so when you hire and manage people, it is a heavy weight, it's a heavy burden, it's a heavy blessing to be able to speak into the lives of people and they have to listen to you. Kind of cool, there's this one-to-one correlation. I sign your paycheck, you do what I say, right? And obviously there's certain things you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to, like, hey, you have to go to church, you have to do these things. But when their character, when their sin or when their life is showing up at work and it has an impact on the way that they're working and their performance at work, you're allowed to talk about it and you have ability to pastor them. You have ability to speak into their life in a way that maybe nobody else does in their life. And so that's gonna be one of my pitches to you today is that you should be excited, you should embrace the opportunity to manage and hire people. Okay, so you're the hero of the story, just so you know, because you're going to leave today and you're going to take some practical advice on how to manage and hire people in a way that is going to be glorifying to God and is going to make their soul better. That's what I want to try and accomplish today. Okay, now, why do we not love to manage and hire people? Well, there's two reasons. I'll say there's an internal reason and there's an external reason. The external reason is 75% of all employers in the US have had a labor-based lawsuit in the last 5 years. 75% of employers in the US have had a labor-based lawsuit in the last 5 years. And that comes from, you mispronoun me, therefore it's sexual harassment. That's actually a really big one. You're discriminating against me, and these lawsuits can go, and Bob Pruitt's going next. He's way smarter than I am, so I'm just kind of the warm-up band for Bob. But these can be $10,000, these can be millions of dollars. I was talking to an employer in Montana, and he had a $15 an hour employee that in a moment of urgency, he hired this person. This is what happens to a lot of employers, and I get to work with thousands of employers around the country. You're busy. You don't have time to think about the hiring process. You need someone to do it, so you put a mirror under their nose. It fogs up. You're like, great, you have a pulse. Get to work, right? Seems like a good idea until 3 weeks in, you realize they're lazy. Everyone's walking on eggshells around them, and they are destroying the morale of my company. So then you go, I need to get rid of this person. So I'm talking to this employer in Montana, and he said, so I have this $15 an hour person that I hired quickly because I was busy, right? Hire this person and everyone hates working with them. They are griping about everyone. They're talking behind everyone's back. They're complaining about everything. Everyone has to walk on eggshells around them. If you say the wrong thing, they go to their manager immediately and he's like, okay, I just gotta let this person go. Goes to the person and says, it just didn't work out. I wanna give you 1 month of severance just as a, sorry it didn't work out. And the person's like, how about $50,000? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, $50,000. Well, anyway, after about a 3-month lawsuit that cost him $50,000 in legal fees, he paid her $50,000. And that, unfortunately, is a very common story in America today. And that's part of the reason that you don't want to hire people, that you don't want to manage people. It used to be fun to hire people. It used to be an opportunity to give someone an opportunity to add to your team, to be able to build your organization. And today, it is a little bit terrifying. So that's the external reason, is these lawsuits. The internal reason is awkward conversations are not something that most of us enjoy, right? And people-based problems never get better with time. People-based problems get better with awkward conversations. You got to lean into it and figure out what's going on. And none of us enjoy that. Well, probably some of us enjoy that. Most of us don't enjoy awkward conversations, right? Okay, so those are these two problems why you don't want to hire. But you also know that there's this huge opportunity to bless people. So how do you get there? I'm going to take a quick detour and tell you my story because it's applicable. Otherwise, my story is a little bit boring. It's not just that I'm a cool bald guy, but I have done some things. So God has blessed me. I've started a whole bunch of businesses. I've had 6 successful exits, which is a tongue twister over the years. And the company that I was running in 2020 was a wonderful company. It was about a $100 million tech business. I had hundreds of employees. I loved my job. And I was trying to be distinctly Christian in the way that I ran that business. So what does that mean? Well, we had 3 principles of that business. We start by blessing the customer. We wanted every person to be better off because they interacted with us, whether they bought anything or not. So bless the customer. The next one, bless the employee. I wanted every employee to be a better person because they worked at the organization. Many of them weren't going to retire there. I wanted them to be a better employee for their next employer. I wanted them to be a better in their family, in their community. I wanted them to go to church. So I wanted to bless the customer. I wanted to bless the employee. And then I wanted to bless the shareholder. And the reason I say shareholder is because we understand that we were under authority. I had a board, I had shareholders, and we're under the authority of Christ. I was under their authority, and I wanted to bless them. But I wanted to bless customers and employees first. And if the shareholders understood that they were number 3, they were going to be blessed way more than if they tried to put themselves number 1. And I told them that all the time. Everything was great, right? Really enjoyed this. As employees came into the business, I was always the final interview. And I would tell them at the end of the interview, I'd say, hey, something you need to know about what's going on at this company. I'm a Christian. I'm saved by the blood of Jesus. And it's not a prerequisite. It's not a weird thing. But I just need you to know I'm going to run this business as a Christian CEO. You're very welcome, but you need to know what you're getting into. And there's certain ramifications to that. We're going to have a kegerator, but you're not going to get drunk at work. We're going to have a 0 tolerance for gossip in our organization. What I mean by that is you do not talk behind someone else's back. If you come to me with a problem and you say, you know what, Andrew, you as the CEO are an idiot and you're making a huge mistake, I might give you a raise, right? If you come to me and say, so-and-so over here, you know, I don't like the way they're handling this, or they smell funny, or they look funny, or they're not doing their job very well, my first question would be, have you talked to them about that? And generally the answer was no. And then my next comment would be, you know, why don't you wait right here? I'm going to go get them. And the 3 of us are going to have a great little conversation right here. It's going to be very, very awkward because you just brought this huge complaint to me without going to talk to that person. You do that one time with an employee and they never gossip anymore. It's amazing, right? They're terrified. And so unless I'm part of the problem or part of the solution, you need to not come and talk to me about stuff. We're going to have 0 tolerance for gossip in our organization. So I just tell them, these are the ramifications of me being a Christian CEO. This is how we're going to run the business. I'm going to pray at meals, and if you don't want to bow your head, that's fine. But this is the culture you're coming into. And over 20 years of doing this, I had 2 potential employees in that interview say, you know, I'm not that interested. Thank you very much. No problem. That's great. I'm glad we had this conversation now. Saved us both a lot of heartache. And I'm going to get to this in a minute. It's important for you as an employer, as a CEO, to live your values out loud. It's actually a legal protection. Bob will go into more to this. And hopefully we agree. We'll find out. That'll be exciting. I also had, over that 20-year period, had an opportunity to pray with people, bring a lot of people to the Lord. I had 3 times did an employee bring a lawsuit, a labor-based lawsuit. You know, I was a victim of those kind of things as well. All of them were thrown out in a hot minute. Because here's the thing. You know when you go to McDonald's and it says the contents of this cup might be hot, right? Well, McDonald's is now, that's telling you, hey, it's a liability. There's no liability here because it's hot. And if you burn yourself, it's on you. It's not on us, right? All 3 of those lawsuits said, hey, this CEO appears to be acting like a Christian. Well, we had it on our website. I was unapologetic about who I was. And their lawyer was like, well, did he tell you all along? Yeah. You don't have anywhere to go. And so those lawsuits were thrown out right away. And so this is how I was trying to run the business. The one thing that I didn't pay attention to was having a board that didn't go crazy. And so 2020 came around, and lo and behold, my board went crazy along with the rest of the world. And they basically sat me down and said, look, if you can park the Christianity, you're welcome to keep your job. You can keep that $1 million a year. You can keep all the fun things you've really enjoyed, the business you love. No problem. Just stop being a Christian CEO. Well, that's tempting, right? It's a job I love. I love working with these people. You know, I could do that job in 30 hours a week. I made a lot of money. All you need to do is stop being a Christian CEO. Just dial that down a little bit. Anyway, God was kind, and I was in a position where I knew the right answer to this. A lot of Christians have been asked this in the past. And I was given this opportunity. I said, okay, I guess we're not the right people. It was about a 6-month process. It wasn't exactly one conversation. Long process. My sweet wife gave me a very nice bottle of scotch for losing my job. Cool. And I was going to take a year and just say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and spend some time maybe playing golf. I've got some real estate stuff I'm doing. I've got 5 kids. Life is good. I don't need to deal with this. But a friend came to me and they challenged me. They said, so, you know, there's this parable about burying your talents in the ground, and maybe applicable. Think about it. Shoot. Okay. And they said, you were also given a choice. You were given a choice between your job and your values. And I had the financial wherewithal to shrug off losing my job. No big deal. But there's going to be a lot of Americans who don't have that choice. And if you put in front of someone the opportunity of like, well, if you live your values out loud, you'll get canceled from Facebook. Like, okay, I don't care. You know, my 3 relatives who follow me, they won't care. If you live your values out loud, you can't pay your mortgage and feed your kids anymore. Oof. Then you're going to be tempted to compromise on something you hold very dearly. And so my friend challenged me. They said, I think God has put you in a moment where you need to go and have the back of people who are in that situation so that if they choose to stick with their values, they can find themselves a new job where they can still be free. Fine. So I start redballoon.work. .work, not .com, because .com sounded like communist to me. We don't need communism, we need work. So redballoon.work. So I start this, I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna do a job board. I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm gonna let people find it. It'll be amazing. Now I can get back to my real estate stuff, hanging out with the kids, all that kind of good stuff. Then I get this call from Fox and Friends. And just to show what a noob I was like, Fox and Friends, what's that? Is that good? Is that a kid's show? Like, hey, Mr. Weasel, what are we gonna do today? I'm like, it sounds like a kid's show, Fox and Friends. Fake. They're like, no, it's a real show. You should come on it. So I'm like, fine. So I got on Fox and Friends. And I talked about it, and they're like, look, turns out you have the largest job board in America that's focused on freedom. At that point, I had like 20 employers, maybe 1,000 job seekers. And I'm like, if I have the largest job board in America that's focused on freedom and that's all I'm doing, there's clearly a need. There's clearly a demand for freedom in America in the workplace today. Right? So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do this, I'll talk about it. We start adding hundreds of employers a day and tens of thousands of job seekers. And I start getting these thank you notes from perfect strangers saying, you were able to help me find a new job where I'm free, and it's changed the trajectory of my family. It has saved my marriage. I'm going to church again. I was telling some folks at dinner last night, I got a note from a single mom who found a new job through redballoon.work. And she said, I came home 3 weeks into my new job, just really love my job, love the people I'm working with. And one of my 2 sons says, Mommy, you're not angry anymore. She's like, oh no, I was angry, Mommy. It's like, you're not angry anymore because you're free at work and it has a huge impact on the rest of your life, right? And so I would encourage you, this is my story. And I'm not telling you just because everybody needs to have the same story. God gave me this burden of I need to bless as many people as possible, and I need to give them freedom at work. And if I can do that, then they can be free in every other aspect of their life. And it has really played out. And I've been very, very blessed by that. So there's my quick story. Again, 5 kids, living the good life. So let's get back to your story. So you don't love hiring and managing people, and part of that is you need to hire the right way. When you are in the hiring process, most of us are desperate to fill that position with someone who can do the work, and that's part of our problem. Hiring is something where you are actually hiring an everlasting soul. You're hiring someone that you have an opportunity to pastor and to speak to in the way that you're employing them. Also, you're going to pay them a lot of money for a lot of years, and they're going to be maybe the person who's going to be facing your customers, who's going to be in front of your other employees. So you need to put the time and energy into the hiring process that's going to save you a lot of the heartache that we talked about earlier in the process. So here's 3 things I'm going to point out when you go into the hiring process. When you go into the hiring process, before you even talk to anyone, you need to articulate and write out your values and your mission statement. What do I stand for? What do I believe in, right? I talked about bless the customer, bless the employee, bless the shareholder. Dave Ramsey's famous with his hungry, humble, smart. Those are the type of people that we want in our organization. So write that stuff out, put it in your job posting, put it on your website, because it's a legal protection for you. When you're in an interview, you can't ask them, when's the last time you went to church? Do you love Jesus? You're not allowed to ask those kind of things, but you can talk about your business as much as you want. So the first thing is, don't be apologetic about who you are. Put your values and your mission statement out there and use them in the interview process. Then you want to build open-ended, evidence-based questions focused on who you are as a business. So if you care in blessing the customer, an open-ended, evidence-based question would be, give me an example of where you went above and beyond your job description to bless a customer in a previous job, right? That you're asking them to tell you a story about how they can show evidence that they have done exactly what is in line with your mission statement at a previous job. That's an open-ended, evidence-based questions. I want evidence that you're going to be a great fit for my team, okay? So I would encourage you write out 3 to 4 values, and then you build 3 to 4 evidence-based, open-ended questions focused on those values. So all of a sudden you have yourself 9 to 12 questions that you've actually put together before you even go into the interview process. That is totally legal for you to ask those questions and focus on, I want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit for my culture and build my team and build my culture. Horowitz says that culture is what your employees do when you're not there. Okay? Company culture is what your employees do when you're not there. So articulate your values, ask evidence-based, open-ended questions about your values. And then I would encourage you for interviews, we don't like panel-based interviews. We like interviews where we can have one-on-one interviews, multiple of them, write down your answers to those interview questions, each of you, and then reconnoiter afterwards. The reason I say write it down, because if you don't write it down, whoever speaks first is going to have this huge impact on what everybody else thinks about that person, right? If you think, man, that person was amazing, and the first person that speaks, yeah, I didn't really like them. Well, now you got to decide, am I going to fight that person? But if you wrote it down and everybody's looking at those written answers, you got to stick with what your original take on that person was, which is probably pretty good. You need to be able to have that debate. But honestly, if you run a process like that, write down your values, evidence-based, open-ended questions on what are they going to fit with your values? Are they going to build your culture? And then spend some time afterwards reconnoitering with different people who did the interview. That is going to save you so much heartache, okay? So I would encourage those 3 things. If you need help with that interview process, that's what Red Balloon does as well. So we are the nation's leading pro-freedom job board. So we have 5,000 employers. We've had 2 million job seekers on the site, and we can help you find great talent. If you want us to run that interview process for you, we do a recruitment process. It is amazing. We love to be a blessing to businesses. We're helping Tucker Carlson and lots of businesses you know the names of with their hiring process. We'd love to help with that. We are doing this because if Christian conservative businesses have the opportunity to hire the right people and build their culture, then you're going to be way more successful. You're going to have way more fun in your job, and you're going to have an opportunity to bless your community, right? Make sense? So My encouragement is don't be afraid of hiring. Hiring is a good thing. Hiring is an opportunity to bless people at scale. And if you do it right, it is really, really fun. And hiring used to be fun in America, and we want to make it really, really fun again. So that is my encouragement. That is my encouragement to you, and it's a huge opportunity, okay? I am grateful for the opportunity to be here because when Christians live their value out at work, you will change culture. And you're going to do it one employee at a time, right? Live your values out loud, hire well, manage well, and God will deeply bless your business, and you're going to be a huge part of the story of your employees, of your customers, and your community. Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful you're here.